So, what experience have you had that connects meditation directly to different healings that you've had, if you don't mind sharing?
I kind of, I started to get better. And that was really nice. And actually, also, this skin problem, the eczema, had come back when I got home at the age of 19. And it only really started to clear up, not suddenly, not like a miracle cure, but gradually once I started meditating. It was part of its hold on my system was based on this really dysregulated nervous system. And when my nervous system started to discharge some of the load it had been carrying, a lot of anxiety and stress and tension, it changed the climate. And eczema didn't do so well in the new climate. So, cut forward 20 years. Whew, that's when I had, I think, a deeper kind of experience than the one I'd had. I'd had various other ones in the course of my training, but at that point I was 45 years old and something deeper happened.
You want to tell us
Way
about that?
Okay. Well, it's all going to sound so weird, but okay.
My guest today is Henry Shukman, who had a spontaneous awakening at the age of 19. And since then, he has become a meditation teacher, a Zen master, an author, and a poet. And we are going to dive deep and talk about all of these things today. So, Henry, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Laurie. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to get this time with you.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you because I have proclaimed on this channel many times that I am not a meditator. So I'm really excited to dive in a little bit and ask you a lot of questions that I've really never been able to ask what I will call a meditation expert. But before we go in that direction, you had a spontaneous awakening at the age of 19, which is pretty early in life to have a spontaneous awakening. I feel like most people, when I talk to them, have them much, much later in life or have a catalyst like a near death experience. So, will you share with us what that journey was for you?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting that. Let me see what I can do. Because first of all, some people might wonder what that even means, an awakening and a spontaneous one. And so I think I should, if I just describe a little bit what actually happened, then
Please
that
do.
gives it, yeah,
Yes.
that'll sort of ground us a bit. Because basically, having grown up in a very academic world, both my parents were professors in Oxford, they were both at the university, and the whole milieu that I grew up in was highly rational and intellectual and thoroughly grounded in science-based logical thinking. And that was all well and good and fine. But suddenly, when I was 19 years old, actually between my childhood in Oxford and the University of Cambridge, where I was going to go to do my, and did go to do my undergraduate degree, this strange thing happened that I had no reference for. I had no understanding really of what it was. And I had nothing in my education, background, schooling had given me any inkling that what that thing was that happened could happen or that existed for human beings. And what it was a moment when um, there kind of a little bit of different layers to it. But first and foremost was that I suddenly discovered that I was not separate from the scene I was standing in. It's like the sense of me and the sense of everything else being outside me, this whole world being outside me and separate from me, disappeared. And it was as if it all became one reality, one field of awareness. And I was just part of that. And it wasn't just me and what I happened to be looking at the time, but the whole universe. It's felt like I suddenly discovered that I was made of the same stuff that the whole universe was made of. Is That's what it seemed like. And one of the characteristics of an experience like that that I now know is that it often comes with this sense that, as it did for me, that what I am now experiencing is more real than my ordinary way of experiencing. So it was extraordinarily beautiful, and it kind of relieved me of all problems. It was like somehow there'd been this other reality going on all the time, and now I had dropped into it. That's sort of what it felt like. And it was more real than my ordinary working, operating reality. And
It's interesting that you say that because I feel like that is the theme throughout so many of these near-death experience accounts is that the other side, that realization, that reality is more real than this. Like this is the dream and that's the real. So is this something that you peeked into and stepped into for moments, like a flash, or did this now become your new reality?
yeah, that's the crucial question, actually. The answer is it stayed for a few weeks, but not with the full intensity of the initial glimpse. It was like, it was a powerful glimpse. And actually, it got a bit deeper where, having crossed this sort of threshold and discovering what I really was part of something much larger, that everything was. But then even deeper, I kind of dropped into what felt like this realm where there was just nothing solid. It was just a spaceless, timeless field of sort of floating, insubstantial sparks or something like that. And that was what everything was made from, and including me, and I just wasn't separate from anything. And it was incredibly beautiful. And then, yeah, I was kind of back, recognizing that I was a human being standing actually on a beach at the time, and I could feel the sand under my feet, and I could sense that there was this great sort of, it was like a great consciousness that everything was arising in. And that sense of being, and then I felt very, as some people put it, feather light and paper thin. It was like
Hmm.
everything was kind of almost transparent. But for the next few weeks, I kind of lived in that state, feeling like I was just sort of hollow. And I became acutely sensitive actually to suffering. I was traveling at the time. I'd had 6 months away from home, and I'd been working in South America, and then backpacking. And as I walked around the streets of the city that I returned to soon after that, I could feel whenever there was like kids, street kids, I just wanted to help them. I gave them what money I had, and I bought them meals. And all my kind of personal agenda had kind of evaporated for some weeks. And then I went home, and it was really different when I went home. Very quickly, I kind of lost all of that. I had a bumpy, rough, difficult re entry into my place of origin, and which had been a very unhappy family situation. I'd also had a chronic skin affliction right through my childhood from the age of 6 months, which was very severe eczema. Often I was
Mm.
in hospital as a young child with it. It was that bad. And I got back home, and I felt all the sort of unexamined trauma, really, of my childhood just overwhelmed me because I was so open. And when I look back on it now, I can see that if I'd had more resources, it could have been a very positive thing to work through these difficult emotions that I had kind of compartmentalized as a kid and adapted to so that I could function. But now, in this state of total authenticity and openness, it all sort of swamped me, and I just had no resources. And it was a very difficult few years, actually. I kind of I functioned. I got through my college degree. I went on to a postgraduate degree, but I was really pretty unhappy. And I felt that I'd lost this incredible treasure that I'd discovered by accident, and that I thought I'd never find it again. I was very unhappy. And
Well, it's interesting. Did you stay the course and continue to study what you had planned to study, or did you change what you were going to study after this experience?
I wanted to change, and I wasn't allowed to by the austere, ancient decrees of Cambridge University at that time. And so that was difficult. And meanwhile, I had all this sort of anguish inside me. I just had no idea what to do with and how to work with it. And I just kind of ground my way through, feeling like I was like a car that had only two of its cylinders working instead of
Mm.
four. I kind of limped through life. And and some good things happened. I got into a nice relationship for a while, and I when I did my studies, and some of it was quite interesting, and so on. And I recovered my love of poetry for a while. And actually, while I'd been away, I'd written my first book, which got published a few years later. And but for a while I was like, oh gosh, I should be working on my book, and I can't because I'm so unhappy, and I can't because I've got all this schoolwork I got to do that I'm only semi interested in. So it was a difficult time, and I just didn't have resources for addressing any of that. And I only started to really get them when I started meditating. And I was 24, 25, and I jumped right into it. And it was a form of meditation that's very popular to this day, actually, somewhat, called Transcendental Meditation, or TM. Deepak Chopra was a big advocate back in the day, and the Beatles had done it. And I had a couple of friends who were really devoted to it, and I thought, well, they're much happier than me. I'll give it a try. And it actually was really helpful. And it sort of, I don't know, it sort of softened me enough and gave me enough calm that I could actually accept, wow, I'm really not very happy. Why don't I do something about it? And I started doing therapy. There was a really wacky maverick therapist that I got connected with from California, a very cool guy called Harvey Carmen. And he had a Saturday morning group that was basically almost everybody was in their 20s like me. So it felt a really good place there's some of the stigma that I felt around being unhappy and having mental health issues and being in therapy. It kind of was easier when there was a group of my peers doing the same thing. And that was just great. And I wouldn't have started that without the meditation. So I got on this double track of meditating daily for like inner spiritual, psychological hygiene is kind of how I thought of it. Like I took a shower every day. I did my internal cleaning every day with the meditation and doing therapy. And I found that for me, and I think there's millions of others who would agree, that's a pretty powerful combination for healing because the meditation is a chance to just be with oneself. And that may not be nice, but if you got the therapy going on as well, you got a space in which you can work with what's difficult. And gradually I kind of, I started to get better. And that was really nice. And actually also this skin problem, the eczema, had come back when I got home at the age of 19. And it only really started to clear up, not suddenly, not like a miracle cure, but gradually once I started meditating. It was part of its hold on my system was based on this really dysregulated nervous system. And when my nervous system started to lose, to discharge some of the load it had been carrying, a lot of anxiety and stress and tension, it changed the climate. And eczema didn't do so well in the new climate. That's how I think of it.
Oh, interesting. So, as a meditation teacher, will you explain to the people that are watching who maybe aren't familiar What exactly is transcendental meditation? How is that different than when I just say meditation? So it sounds like there are different deviations, different practices. Will you explain what they are?
Yes, for sure. Somebody once said that the word meditation, if you use it in Asia, it's about like using the word sport in the West because there's so many different forms it can take. So that particular form, TM, they used to call it, Transcendental Meditation, was developed in the 60s by a particular Indian guru. And he wanted to make it very accessible for as wide a number of people as possible. So they just came up with this formula. You got to do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And they give you a mantra, which is a syllable or two that you're going to repeat in your mind. And I actually, to this day, I don't really know if they mean anything. They're just a sort of sound that you repeat. And it helps calm the nervous system, and it can bring you into a state of deep rest, deep clarity, and peace. And it comes out of a kind of Hindu yogic world, basically, but it's a specific methodology. So actually, I did that for about 5 years, and then I encountered Zen meditation. And I changed to Zen at that point. I've now done various different methodologies, by the way. But for a good while, I was on the Zen track. And the reason I changed was because of that experience I'd had when I was 19, that it just became very clear to me very quickly when I first encountered Zen that it totally knew about that kind of experience and it valued that kind of experience. It knew that it was real, and it sort of, in a way, it was the heart of what Zen was about, was how do you revisit something like that? Can you make something like that kind of revelation happen? And but more important for me was like, and how could you learn to live in a stable way from that kind of place? And it took a long time in my case, but about, I don't know, in my mid 40s, actually. So cut forward 20 years. Phew. That's when I had, I think, a deeper kind of experience than the one I'd had. I'd had various other ones in the course of my training, but at that point I was 45 years old and something deeper happened. And in a
You want to tell us
way,
about that?
okay, well, it's all going to sound so weird, but okay. It was
Hey,
on a,
hey, you forgot where you are. We're on a channel where I interview people who have had near-death experiences, spiritually transformative experiences. Like the audience is looking for these. They're
okay,
searching these out. So weird is kind of a
okay.
constraint that depends on your audience, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll go for it. So I was in a retreat. I'd been doing many retreats by then, like 3, 4, 5, 6 day retreats. And there were deep meditation retreats, a lot of meditating with one of my teachers who was a Zen master, a very beautiful, compassionate, gentle guy. And one night on this retreat, I was sitting late after everybody else had gone to bed. I just had this moment of like being super clear that where I thought I was in my chest area, where I felt I was anchored in here, it was just empty. And there was just this vast peace. And I went to talk to him the next day in a little one on one interview that you had with the teacher. And I started describing it. And he sort of smiled at me, looked at me. And then all of a sudden, it was really like absolutely everything disappeared. Though I wasn't even conscious. There was just nothing. And then I sort of came back and it was just amazing. It was like everything kind of was all topsy turvy and then gradually reconstituted itself into the world as I'd known it, but just me. And it was so beautiful. Like there's only this moment right now is all there is. It's really all there is. And it's like the ultimate reality is just this. And
So, Henry, did the Zen master do something to you to cause you to go into that place?
all I can say is he just sort of looked at me. I don't really know. I'd been training at quite some years at that point. And for several of the last few years, like the last 4 or 5 years, I'd been doing this kind of training called koan training in Zen, where you get given a kind of riddle. The famous one is, what is the sound of one hand? I
What
don't know
is
if
the
you
say that again? What is the what?
what is the sound of one hand? So it kind of makes no sense,
Yeah,
but
that's what
these are
I was thinking.
yeah, but you sit with these little questions, and then there'll be some shift happens, and you just sort of drop into a deeper place, and then you meet with the teacher, and they can sort of affirm that yeah, you're right, that's real, what you just tasted is real. And I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and then when I was on that particular retreat, and um so it was a culmination all of various things of that training, of my relationship with him, and with I had another Zen teacher as well I was working with, my relationship with her. And somehow I was just ready. They say when the plum is ripe, it drops from the tree. They say that in Zen. And it was like that. I was like, sort of everything I'd known kind of just quietly, peacefully fell away. And after that, it's been different. Since then, it's been different. It's now 16 years ago. And it's ever since then it's been different, that it's harder for me to get. It's not like I don't think of myself as a sort of some kind of finished state. I'm still a work in progress, totally. But it's been much easier to drop into this place of boundless love, really, which is what that opened up. It was like I'd had a tangle of roots inside me, although I didn't know it, and they got dug out. And in the space that was left, it was like a little pit that filled with sweet spring water and just kept filling, keeps on filling. So for me, it was like a um, opening up, a direct contact with a kind of boundless love, something like
Wow.
that, which I feel is what this universe really is one great act of generosity and
Yeah.
creativity. And we are part of it. We're not separate from it. We're
Well, I
part.
agree with that completely. So, for the people who are not familiar, I am not, what is the difference between Zen meditation and transcendental meditation?
Yeah. So, okay. So, coming back to that point about the word meditation covering a
Sure.
multitude of things. So, there are various traditions that have used meditation as their primary practice, their primary methodology. And one of those is Buddhism, of course. And Buddhism has lots of different evolutions and branches of Buddhism. And one of them is Zen. And so, meditation is central to it. And the idea is to get some sort of breakthrough that or shift whereby whatever you're learning in meditation becomes kind of seamless with your ordinary life. So, because they think the real miracle is here right now. It's not like the stories in Zen are like some miracle worker showed that he could walk on water. And the Zen master was totally unimpressed 1200 years ago or something in the story. And he said, that's just pointless. For me, the miracle is chopping wood and carrying water, which at that time would have been the most ordinary household task. So it'd be like saying, for me, the real miracle is making a cup of tea, making breakfast for my kids in the morning. That's the real miracle. Getting in my car, going to work, going to Trader Joe's. The fact that we're doing all this incredible field of experience is arising and we are experiencing it. That's the miracle. And so the Zen view is like, yeah, we may have to kind of go on this spiritual journey and make discoveries, which in a sense is what I did. But that's only part of the journey. The real journey is ordinary life and realizing that it's miraculous and it's so beautiful. And of course, it's full of problems as well. And how do we face life's challenges, and how do we face our individual and family challenges and our social global challenges as well, from a place of love and compassion and not hate and division and so on. I don't know, is that making more sense or?
Yeah, and I want to kind of expand on that a little bit because one of the things that people sometimes talk about with meditation is altering brain waves. So we have different waves that our brains are in depending on whether we're sleeping, whether we're restfully awake or fully awake. And one of the things that I've always heard that is kind of the goal of meditation is to get into what I would call a gamma brainwave state, which is activating the pineal gland, right? To be able to have some of these experiences where you leave the body behind, but take your consciousness and go somewhere else. So, will you speak to that a little bit and what you've learned about those states and what this meditation does to your brain waves?
Yeah. Okay. So actually, I've got a book that maps this stuff out called
Oh, I
Original
love that. I
Love.
didn't even know that. So, look at
Yeah.
me putting the layup right there for you.
Yeah, no, no, that's great. And it actually there are different kinds of positive condition that can switch on in meditation. And there's one set of practices known as absorption practices. And they are where we get more and more into states of calm and even bliss, and we get more and more absorbed in them. And so that's very beautiful. And some say that it can be more restful than sleep. So if we do an hour of that a day, say, we won't need so much sleep. And yes, I don't really,
Have
there's a
you
lot of
found that to
science.
be the case for yourself personally?
Yeah, I have, but I'm hesitant to say everybody should try it because I think it's really important to sleep well also.
Mhm,
I think we should be careful about cutting back on sleep. There's a lot of research these days about the value of sleep. So,
mhm.
but I do think the meditation has a part to play if we're getting into those deep states of restful awareness. So that's great. But the bigger project of meditation, in my view, is about the kinds of discoveries that we can make about who we really are and what our relationship with this world truly is. So the I'd say like the part of the pathway can be the world goes quieter and quieter and we get more and more absorbed into the depths of consciousness and we find beautiful states of mind. That's fantastic. But almost more important is actually how do we live? What does that, what are the experiences that actually change our understanding of our relationship with this world? Because, like, I don't know whether you read Jill Bolt Taylor's book, My Stroke of Insight.
No,
It's
I haven't
it's a
even heard of that one.
it's a great book. She's a brain surgeon, neuroscientist who had a stroke that basically shut down her left hemisphere for several months, and she lived in bliss. It was like she was having one of these awakening experiences that just went on and on. And she gradually got better and retrained her left hemisphere, and it came back online. And she sort of left that state of mind and she kind of misses it, but she's very happy that she experienced it. And she's very happy that she's got her brain back the way it used to be. But actually, and it's very beautifully described and stuff, but a lot of what she described in that period of the shutdown left hemisphere was just like awakening. And the goal in something like Zen and other paths of traditional paths of wisdom using meditation is actually to realize that those two conditions aren't really two, they're really one. And so coming to be able to experience ordinary life as this boundless treasure is really, I think, the more important sort of goal for life, because we're realizing who we really are. We're not who we thought. We're not separate from the world the way we thought. We're not separate from other beings, other people, other creatures, or this whole planet the way we thought. We're part of it. And then living from that place of thorough connectedness will make our priorities change. And that's the great value of it, I think.
Hmm. So I mentioned in the beginning that I'm not a good meditator.
Yeah.
And I'll just explain what I mean by that, because I think a lot of people watching might be in the same boat that I am. As I have been on my spiritual journey since I was 30, so quite a while now, I have heard over time meditate. So I remember when I found Dr. Joe Dispenza many years ago, and he has this meditation practice, and he even had some recorded meditations, guided meditations. So I would try that. But I'm a super sleeper. And what I mean by that is if it took me 2 minutes to fall asleep, I'd probably panic. If I get on a plane and I want to go to Japan or Australia, I'm the only one who gets there doesn't have jet lag because I slept the whole time. I'm a super sleeper. I've just really have trained myself to sleep. So what happens when I try to meditate is that I fall asleep. It doesn't matter if I got 12 hours of sleep and then immediately meditated. Doesn't matter if I sit up, lay down, try a mantra. I've done 90-day practices where I've 20 minutes, I've tried 5 minutes, I've tried all these different modalities. I've even been in Sedona in a group circle, sitting down on rocks and fallen asleep with my friends doing a guided meditation. It just doesn't work for me. But what does work for me is walking meditation. So I'm a hiker, I'm an outside in nature person. And when I have the ability and opportunity to be by myself, I will try and quiet my mind and try and keep on bringing it back to non thought. And that for me is my meditation. So will you speak to that for all the people out there that are beating themselves up, being like, I can't be spiritual because I can't meditate?
Well, first of all, I got to say, you are meditating. There's a traditional teaching that there's four positions for meditating. One is
Okay.
sitting,
Okay.
one is lying down, one is standing up, and one is walking.
Oh,
So
I
you're good.
love
It's
that. I've never heard anybody even say that. So that's
oh yeah. Well, it's nothing special about sitting in a certain posture. Nothing particularly valuable about that. Most people who do meditate like to do it sitting, basically because it's easier, because there's less stimulation from the outside. But if you can do it, but actually, I mean, not in TM, but in many traditions anyway, walking meditation is part of the training. Like if
really.
on a Zen retreat, you probably do like 10 periods of walking meditation every day.
Oh, wow. This
So
is
it's
great
not,
to know. I've never heard anybody say that before.
it's 100% valuable. It's real meditation, walking meditation. Totally. And you can experiment with, okay, what is it like if I walk super slow so that I'm really
Which
conscious?
isn't that's kind of not part of my DNA, but okay.
You could try it. Just try it for a minute where you're really like you've got one foot and you feel the heel lift up. Then you feel the toes lift off the ground. You move the foot forward, you put it down, heel first and then toes.
So almost
And
like
then
a
you
slow motion.
slow motion and you're trying to track every piece of it so you feel the heel comes up, the toes come up, the foot moves, the heel comes down, the toes come down, and you feel all parts of it. And then you do the next foot, and you just see how consistently does my mind stay on that. Does it? Do I suddenly
Oh.
realize, whoa, I was just thinking about that conversation 3 years ago? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's what happens. We go to memories, plans, imaginings. Most of us, the
Yes.
three places we go. Okay. So you recognize that. Just say, okay, I went to imaginings. Now let me try again. And you just repeat. And every time you do it, and every time you realize you've been away and you come back, you're strengthening your capacity to be aware. here and now. And you may find, I just did 25 minutes. Never once was I not aware of the movement of my feet. I don't know. You might find that. That would be unusual, but it's
It
quite
would be
possible.
unusual. That's really interesting. I love that's just what I really love about having this platform, because you can bring these guests on and everybody has a different point of view. And there is no one right way to do
That's
any of these things. And so I have a series of videos on my channel in a playlist called Uncover Your Soul's Purpose, What You Don't Know Is Holding You Back. No meditation required, because I didn't want
yeah.
people to feel like, if they were like me, that they could not have this spiritual journey, because it's just not true.
It's not true at all. No, meditation is one great big bag of methodologies that are helpful for a lot of people, but totally not everybody and totally not necessary. I mean, wow, look at me. When I was 19, I had a really profound awakening experience, and I'd never meditated. Actually, I had a tiny bit when I was 14, 15, and I read Be Here Now, Ram Dass's book.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
just started doing the Om Mani Padme Hung meditation that was in that book. I just got curious as a young teen and did it a bit. But, that wasn't like a serious, steady practice or anything. But when I was 19, I had this really profound awakening. Uh, that at least it changed the course of my life. And I'd never really meditated. I wasn't really on a path of meditation. And when I did start meditating, it wasn't for that. It was for healing, really. And
So
there's
talk
a
a little bit about that. So what experience have you had that connects meditation directly to different healings that you've had, if you don't mind sharing?
yeah, well, look, I think the basic kind of meditation these days that most people are familiar with is mindfulness.
Right.
And millions of people are doing it. There's over 150 million have tried it in America alone, which is staggering. And maybe something like 20 million people have some kind of regular mindfulness practice in their
Well,
lives.
explain to for people who aren't familiar what exactly you mean when you say mindfulness.
Yeah, mindfulness is what most people these days think of as meditation, which is where you might be encouraged to stay aware of your breath. You might be encouraged to listen to sounds around you or feel your feet on the floor or your butt on the seat, something to ground you in the here and now. And there's many approaches to that, but the mindfulness movement, and it is a huge movement, is all about coming back to being aware of this moment now rather than being lost in thought. And
Mm,
when we're lost in thought, we often also have some amount of emotional distress happening.
mm,
And that distress makes us more tied into the thinking, and it all spirals and keeps us in a little sort of vortex where we're not aware of here and now. So, the advantages of being more aware of here and now is one, that we're actually experiencing our life as it's happening rather than being lost in thought. Two, there we can cultivate a sort of space of awareness that helps us be with our emotional difficulties and just be kind to what we're feeling in our hearts rather than jumping into thought loops about it. We can be with this difficult feeling in my chest. Wow, I'm hurting. I've got a little bit of heartbreak here I didn't recognize. Ah, let me just be with it. So that's healing. And then on the kind of little bit more neuroscientific side, we're basically learning to calm our nervous systems. That
mm.
means
Which is what you probably did to heal that eczema.
totally is that we're getting a chance to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system,
Mm,
calms us down, and to dial down the sympathetic nervous system, which is activation, being ready for action. It can go into the stress response, fight, flight, freeze, but it can also just be being activated, ready for action. But we're dialing that down and we're coming into a place of calm. So now it's very interesting that you find you fall asleep anytime you try to meditate. It's really cool. It's great to be a super sleeper. When I
it
started,
is good to be a super sleeper. I know a lot of people who would love to have that ability.
exactly. When I was starting meditation, the first week that I really did it, I slept 20 hours a night for a week. It was insane. I did a
I
whole
didn't even know
12
how
hours.
you could sleep 20 hours, but
Well,
that's
I'll tell you what happened.
crazy.
I was a graduate student, right? And I had a very flexible schedule. I was supposed to be working on a dissertation. So at night, I'd do my meditation, exhausted after it, go straight to bed, 8 p.m. or something, sleep through till 9 a.m., get up, make coffee, have a piece of toast. And I was walking to the tube. I was living in London at the time to go to the library, the college where I was studying. And on the way to the tube, I felt really weird and tired. And this was the first morning after I really started. And I thought, God, I must be getting a cold or flu or something. And I walked back to my apartment, my flat, went back to just sort of see, take my temperature and stuff, and sat on the sofa. Next thing I knew, it was 1 o'clock and I'd slept all the morning. And I said, whoa, this is weird. I made some lunch. Then I thought, okay, I'll try to go to the college for the afternoon. Same thing happened. I slept half of the afternoon, got up again, did my evening meditation, boom, back to bed. And it was like that for 6 whole days. And on the seventh morning, I did my meditation, expecting for the same thing to happen. But when I finished it, I was in this state of clear, beautiful peace. And it was like what they call the sleep debt had cleared. And in TM,
Yeah,
they
I was
believe
gonna say you got all the sleep out of your system.
exactly, exactly. And
And
it makes it,
I will proclaim, like for many years, I used the sleep time as my time to get things done. And so I would exist on 5 hours of sleep, sometimes less, depending on the projects I was doing. I don't do that anymore. I really tried to make it a practice to get 7 hours of sleep. But I would
right.
imagine that there's probably a part of me that is sleep deprived. And maybe that's been one of the barriers to meditation, but I do also feel like I have other things that I do for my spiritual that take me to places like where a meditator is trying to do, like through my medicine journeys. Well, I'll call them medicine journeys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Beautiful. Well, I mean, it could be, it's very possible that both are true. You could be carrying a sleep debt and meditation, because remember, meditation has different dimensions. One of it is all that awakening side of seeing through the sense of self. That's a very deep side of it, but it's got a much more practical, down to earth side, which is just restoring our nervous systems. And I tend to think if somebody's falling asleep when meditating, good. They need it. They need the sleep. And the meditation is showing them they need the sleep. It's like a
Oh,
barometer.
interesting. Hmm.
Sometimes people don't realize until they start meditating, gosh, I've been anxious and I hadn't
Hmm.
noticed it. So it's like a barometer. And it's good to be aware of these things. What am I going to do about my anxiety? I'm going to get some help with it, or I'm going to find some exercises and methods that will help me calm my troubled heart.
Yeah.
And so I tend to believe that it's got these different dimensions. One is, yeah, is man, we're part of the whole cosmos. And that's great, but that's like the deep end. And then it's also got, it's restorative, it's healthy for the nervous system. But again, I don't want to be saying everybody's got to do it. I don't
Yeah.
believe that. I just think
Yeah.
that for a lot of people, it's probably got something.
For
And
sure.
I would
Absolutely. Oh, I know a lot of people who swear by it.
I
Yeah.
would just trust your system. If it needs to sleep, it needs to sleep. I don't think
Yeah.
meditation lies. I think it
Hmm.
gives us a accurate mirror of where we're at.
I love that. So you have a more than one book, correct, that you've written? Because you wrote one that you did more recently, and then you have the one that you got published when you were younger. So will you tell us a little bit about the books and where people can find you and how they could work with you?
Sure. I my latest book is called Original Love: The Four Inns on the Path of Awakening, and it's like these four main areas that meditation can help us with if we're curious. And of course, I'm not saying meditation is the only way to get help in those four areas. But if you're interested in meditation, here's what it can do for you. Four primary kinds of things. One of them is the mindfulness we're talking about, and another one is the awakening we're talking about. And another is that absorption thing of finding these beautiful flow states where it's also beautiful and effortless and clean and clear and lovely and timeless. That's also part of it. And then actually the fourth, well, the one that I haven't listed, is finding how connected we are, that
Mm,
we're not separate the way we thought. So anyway,
yeah.
so that's one thing, Original Love, the book. Then I have an app that I've created with a small, marvelous team led by my nephew, Jack Shukman, who's the CEO, and it's called The Way. And
Okay.
that's on the App Store and in Google Play. And it's the first of its kind meditation app because it doesn't give you a great library of fantastic choices. There is no choice. There's a single pathway and it trains you in meditation. So it's like
Oh,
Duolingo, but meditation. Duolingo is this language app that teaches people to speak languages,
hmm.
and it's very popular. And so ours is like the Duolingo for meditation. It
Okay.
teaches you how to do it step by step, and you never have to choose, should I do this? Should I do that? Every day, a new meditation.
So you would on your phone, you would go to the app store for your Android or for your Apple, and then they would be able to find it. So say what the name of it is again?
The Way.
The Way.
Yeah.
Oh, very neat.
Yeah. And I also do live Zoom sessions, which quite a number of people come to. And there's usually about 20 of those a year. And they're called Original Love. And all of the above is on my website, henryshukman.com. And
Okay,
I
well, I'll
said,
make sure I put that in the show notes for everybody.
thank
Henry,
you.
this has been a very fascinating conversation. I'm so glad that our mutual friend connected us so that we could have this and share this. And I just want to thank you so much for what you are doing to help wake up the collective consciousness. It's very greatly needed right now.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm just part of it and just doing what has
Never
naturally
say
emerged.
just.
Okay. Okay. I am happily part of it all and doing what has emerged and unfolded, and I'm just I'm not just, I am letting things unfold.
Yes, and that's beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Hey, thank you for having me, Laurie.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.